I'll then I'll be happy to start 4 jacks, and it can do as dramatic as necessary.
Everybody, welcome. We're having way too much fun today, as we always do. I think business should be fun. I think life should be fun because it's hard a lot of times too. But welcome to week 258. We're going to be talking about making AI work, and we have plenty of examples. Chad Jenkins is finishing up another call, so he'll be joining us shortly. But Jack Santinello has a special background for us just for this theme. So he will make a dramatic entry. Before we have Jack and Chad join us with their dramatic entries, um, Adam, anything from a is our taxes actually, are we going to see tax reform codified, or are we going to see the biggest tax increase ever? Like what's your take on what's going on out there?
Um, Thanks, Gary. Good question. My gut feeling is I think that it'll probably pass with a little bit of nose holding from Senate Republicans, because I don't see if you think about like the Republicans that didn't, because it just passed by one vote in the House. So if you think about the Republicans there that were really like, oh my God, this is a deficit, increasing, blah, 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 blah. Basically, they're on the Elon Musk side of the deficit spending thing. Um, the Republicans who are kind of, talking the same way, I think ultimately don't want to have to be known as the guys who voted against the tax increase. The I guess just what I wanted to ground everybody with, though, is that the, you know, first off, even if you roll back to the Biden Harris tax proposal, a lot of the elements that are in this proposal have a lot of similarities. And the only meaning like, the Trump Harris proposals weren't actually really that radically different. The only difference is that the Harris Biden proposals had more income limitations on them for high income earners, meaning like, hey, you don't get this if you're at this level of income. Whereas these don't have those same income limitations, even though, Trump has said, hey, I'm okay with taxing the wealthy a little bit more, right? This bill does not include that. What this bill includes is basically, hey, let's just make the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, air quote, as much as permanent is permanent in the tax code, meaning like the next Congress and administration could easily revert back. So when they're talking about tax increase, tax increases, tax cuts, whatever, I think where that's all just a bunch of BS, Gary, is that
Yeah.
it's quite frustrating to hear. It's like, Gary, we're giving, the Democratic side of the argument is we're giving millionaires tax breaks. Well, all we're doing is extending the tax rate that the millionaire already had.
Right.
So if we let it expire, we would actually be taxing the millionaires more. You know, we're we're if Democrats just want to increase taxes on the lower class, but whatever. It's like, well, they just not really. They were just looking to let the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expire, with some other changes. So it's like it's really they're not actually doing anything, with this other than extending effectively what's already in place with a couple little tweaks that they needed to fix from the first time around. So like this isn't like a massive thing. This isn't like a massive overhaul of the whatever. It's just hey, let's keep what we already had in place with a couple little tweak fixes. Which also, goes to say that like at the end of the day, we are still running a massive federal deficit. Only way that you cure a deficit is that you either sell more and sell your way out of it, which with the federal government selling your way out of it would mean raising taxes. Because that's the source of revenue. Some joker here is going to say, or the tariffs, you know. But yeah, there's not enough tariffs to make up for the deficit, by the way, unless tariffs were universally across the board at like 60%. Um, but then the other way, in which case there would be no tariffs because we wouldn't buy anything from overseas, in which case we're back to the same problem, right? So the other way is you've got to make the cuts, and making the cuts, like there's the level, if you're taking defense spending off the table, the level of cuts required, you just can't, they're not makeable. you know, without just shutting the whole government down, So just remember, it's all a bunch of nonsense and posturing. That's all, Gary. I'll shut it now. It's enough out of me.
No,
but that's a long way of saying, all tirade aside, if I wouldn't quite bet my house, but I come pretty damn close to betting my house that the Senate, for all the ballyhoo, is just going to hold their nose and pass away because they're not going to run on the whole didn't do that.
yeah, yeah, it sure seems that way. So before we bring Chad on, so he's teed up, and Chad, we may want to be able to have you do some sharing of your screen. So I'll make sure that I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can do that.
Okay.
Be prepared. But Jack, I know that you want to say something because you want to show off your cool background.
Yeah, well, hold on. I need to make sure that everything is nice and calm here, and I've paused everybody that is in the background to make sure that, and they have agreed to pause
Okay,
for a moment the hostilities so that we can have this discussion. And so I'm reporting to you from the land of I told you so. And so yeah, this is kind of a continuation of my discussion last week, or my comments about just where are we going in the future with AI and things like that, and all the movies, Terminator, Battlestar Galactica, all those things that we build it, and they so hopefully Chad didn't offend you, because obviously I even used AI this morning to make sure that a legal point that I was making was accurate, because I had someone else making a counterpoint which I knew was incorrect, and I privately showed it to her offline, and hopefully I am correct. I haven't validated that outside of Chat GPT, but at least I think that that's correct. So what I do want to do is just go through a quick run through of what is in, and I pulled just an article of what's in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And this is from what I believe to be a nonpartisan, although when I read it, it may seem a little partisan, but it's not from a White House feed or anything like that. So tax cuts extends the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which will expire at the end of this year. The bill would prevent tax increases for 62% of taxpayers, and Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 would pay around 15% less. The bill includes no tax on tips and overtime, and historic tax cuts for seniors. Spending reduces non-military government spending, some of it related to nutrition assistance and Medicaid, increases defense spending by $150 billion, and scales back clean energy tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. Increased requirements for federal benefits eligibility, increase the national debt ceiling, expensing for investment in equipment and other short-lived assets. And then according to the Tax Foundation, this says, according to the Tax Foundation, which I don't know anything about the Tax Foundation, whether it is bipartisan or not. Tax bill's provisions would reduce federal tax revenue by $4.1 trillion for the next 9 years. And the bill's tax and spending changes would increase the 10-year budget deficit by $2.6 trillion. However, the White House claims that the bill is a once-in-a-generation chance that will deliver permanent change tax cuts and bigger paychecks for Americans. So that's the snippet that I found a few minutes before we started the video, looking for something that was not partisan. But because I know that we, over the course of time, even in the past 7 days, hear snippets about this is what it is, this is what it is. And whatever the topic of discussion is, whether it's military spending, the way it's reported, you would think that's the only thing that is in this tax bill. And we all know that that's not true. So this is just a quick summary about what is the main topics that are in this bill.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So one of the reasons that we're talking about making AI work is one of the things that drives me crazy, and probably most of you crazy, is hearing somebody spout off about, oh, AI can do this and it can do that, and it's going to do all these amazing things. But then it's like, well, how do I actually do that besides having Chat GPT be a voice activated Google search? I mean, really, so
Oh, wow.
how do you do that? And
Mhm.
so I called Chad, who is a friend, and he is always kind of on the leading edge of a lot of things, including all things related to technology. But he's a business owner and has multiple businesses ranging from construction to, you know, um, AI, especially in their building of apps and that sort of thing, but then I'll also manage services. So he has stuff that spans the gamut that goes beyond just technology. And so I said, "Hey, Chad, I want to replicate an app for salespeople in and it was kind of a gamified app that has been mothballed and is we can't find it in existence. We've gone back to the group that had it, and we actually used it at one point and loved it. And they're like, it's not available, can't find it. So I said, Chad, with the advancement of AI and like, are there things, it's a very simplified thing. It's basically tracking the inputs of people, like, did you meet with somebody today? Did you meet with a client? And various categories. There are like 4 categories. And I just want to build this simple app. Is there something available? And he goes, well, hey, give me a few minutes. And I was driving home, and as I was rolling into my house in the garage, he said, hey, can you get in front of a computer and I can walk you through in 5 minutes this thing through? And he has multiple things. And so, Chad, we're going to want to hear, like, what are the things that you're seeing that we can actually use? But I had a
Mhm.
problem that I thought was fairly simple. Like, and yes, there are app builders, and I've got a friend that's launched a company, and he's actually using his own, and he doesn't know how to write code, and he's built kind of an app. But I also want to have something that we could actually scale across the company and across other firms. And so in 5 minutes, he says, all right. And he's driving, his Tesla is driving him to the airport while he's taking me on this journey. And he said, just talk to this thing like it's a grad student, like an assistant professor, right? And just talk to it in plain English. You can do it via voicemail or voice to text, or just type it in. And I thought, I'm going to just type it because I can think through this before I hit enter a little bit more clearly, because I wanted very specific things. And what blew my mind, and he said it'll show you, it'll come back with a UI, yeah, user interface. So you have some IX, some like, oh, this is kind of what it looks like. And I said, I want to use our logo. You can go to trustbgw.com and look at so you can get a look and tone and feel for who we are, etc. And then it would come up with a scope document, and it was mind-boggling. I mean, freaking mind-boggling. So I thought, now this is a very practical, mind-boggling thing that I would have taken hours to just, and it would have been a skeleton of what this thing spit out. It's really incredible. So that was the impetus of why we're going down this path, because Chad, everybody's been hearing AI is coming, and it can do all this stuff. But most people use Chat GPT for glorified Google searches. Adam is advanced beyond that. He's using it for other things. Yeah.
I'm still using it for glorified Google searches, maybe a little brainstorming and some calculations.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, Chad, without further ado, introduce yourself, and let's talk about some practical applications that you're seeing, how people, a problem and then a resolution.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Chad Jenkins with SEEDSPARK. You mentioned multiple companies. It is true. I don't identify with any of the companies. I just identify with the value created. Yes, I own cybersecurity and software and AI and construction and HVAC, all of those, but it's about the value that's created from it and how can you do that uniquely. So this technology bend, you never want me writing any code or setting up a server, but I like to figure out how to practically apply the capabilities so I can create a bigger outcome. And AI is absolutely providing that ability to do so. We'll just kind of unpack Mr. Gary's objective. Was it last week? Correct?
Yeah.
I said that on time last week. Yeah.
It was on
So,
Friday.
yeah. What I most identify is entrepreneurs by default, and everybody, I would argue, on the planet have what I classify as a who deficiency. So if we could see hands, who on the call has ideas, right? Everybody does, because you're factory installed with an imagination from your creator. So you have all these ideas, but what holds you back from making them become reality? It's a who deficiency, right? The second that you begin to engage with someone else, oftentimes it's a person, place, or thing, but lion's share is a person, you're able to get forward momentum, right? So the person who has the idea, you can look back through history, they've never been the person to actually make it real and make it recur. It's always been in a collaboration with a person, place, or thing. So whenever AI began to get traction, what now, almost 2 years ago, just a little bit more than 2 years ago, I believe, this is nothing more than just a new tool. Honestly, it solves a lot of this who deficiency problem that we're all affected by. But you're right in the way that many are beginning to use it at some level. I hadn't heard this glorified Google search. Makes a lot of sense to me. If you're jotting down things that might provide you even more value in that realm, even for the three that I said, do you guys use Perplexity at all?
Nuh-uh.
You do not know what Perplexity is? Holy crap.
No.
Okay. So I'd make a polite suggestion you may want to consider. I assume most of us use iPhone. Wherever Safari is, move it after you download perplexity.ai. So if I just have a question, I'm going to Perplexity. How would you put that in your fabric? Because a lot of times you'll hear me reference that because you have muscle memory built up in things that you ever do every day. Don't try to fight it, leverage it. So an example, if I move where now currently is Safari and I replace it with Perplexity AI, then every time my finger's going to, of course, just hit Safari. But what's going to come up is Perplexity. Perplexity is free. I'm sure you can pay for it, but I would suggest you don't need to. And they have a pro level of search. I think you can do that 5 or 6 times a day for the free model. And I would just use that for your questions. From a Chat GPT standpoint, I'm going to research, I'm going to build, and I'm going to use it for a specific function. So what you're seeing is all of these LLMs are now beginning to nestle into their own spot. And what you want to do, of course, is begin to then leverage them for what they do best. So as I mentioned, I'm using Perplexity for my questions because I just have a quick question. I'm going to use Chat GPT because if you're using it by way in which you can get the most amount of value out of it, you want to upload things into it and build its own memory. So I assume most of us have done some level of profile studies or a bunch of profile studies. I would load every one of those in there, like build its awareness of you. So when you ask a question, you can use a lot fewer words. If you're not really skilled in prompting, you're probably using way too few words already,
Mhm.
and it takes you 4 or 5 cycles to get exactly to what you want. The way to think about, and we'll just use GPT an example, it's a PhD level assistant that you have in the palm of your hand. Maybe you get it for free, maybe you're paying 20, maybe you're on a team and you share the GPT between the rest of your team and you're maxing out at 25 bucks a month. Like you can't get it for any cheaper than that. And overall, like a PhD level assistant. So I would do whatever it takes to put it in my fabric on a daily basis. Perplexity, the Safari hack, of course, Chat GPT, the way that I use it on a daily basis. As I pull out of the garage to go to the gym, I press the enhanced voice. Now, in my world, I'm huge on collaborations for entrepreneurs all over the world. So I've given ChatGPT a name, and my name for my voice assistant is Collabra. So when I press the button to drop the garage, or I don't even have to do that anymore thanks to Tesla, as I pull away 20 feet from the garage, it begins to shut. I press the enhanced voice and I say, "Good morning, Collabra." And I begin to share what's on my mind. Now, most of my time is built around creating concepts that other entrepreneurs can use to exponentially grow their business around the art of leveraging collaboration. So I'm in constant search of how to better communicate these ways that I've started and grown so many companies over the years. And absolutely, ChatGPT is wonderful for that. So I have this conversation back and forth. And when I pull into the gym, I simply ask one question. Can you summarize everything that we've just talked about so that I can copy and paste and send it to my team? So by the time my team comes online every day of the week, they've got to download considerably better written than I've ever done for the whole time I've been on earth to give them instructions and oversight and basically everything that I've been thinking around a concept and what the next steps are, which is an amazing way to use ChatGPT. It's building this profile of you. You guys may know or may not know there's a context window in what you're doing whenever you're engaging with these LLMs. So when you get to the end of the context, it begins to delete off what you originally told it when you began to work on this project. So I just want to be kind of considerate of that. And the way that you manage it is you would tell it when you began to ask a request, especially if you knew it's something way, way far behind you, like you did this 6 weeks ago, tell it to remember the original things because it's still in there. It's just using, it's not using in the context window. And that's going to produce a lot more favorable results. So if you're working on a long-term project, always remember when you make your new request or you're going back to one of the things that's down the left side of your GPT, when you click into there, tell it to start from the beginning. Like originally we began this conversation, I'd like for you to remember all the things that we originally started with and then take them in context for the answering of this question or inquiry.
Chad, let
Jack,
me
you have a
ask you
question?
this. Yeah. So, in your drive to work, when you're
Yes.
talking into, and you say, all right, these are, you make a bullet point list, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you continue on and you're like, oh, wait a minute, add number 5. Will it go back and add number 5, now add number 6? So your stream of consciousness, is it organizing it when you remember things later into that output that you were saying at the end?
It definitely is whenever you get to the end. And I'm glad you asked that question. I mentioned it earlier when I pull into the gym. I always ask it to summarize everything that we've spoken of because I want it to capture that stream of consciousness in sequence. So I think it's very paramount that you do it that way to create a very nice outcome. Because if not, it can be a little gyp-jawed or it leaves something out. So it's totally fine to go further with that. It's totally fine to have that stream of consciousness because it happens, right? Even the responses that I'll get back from Collabra makes me think about something. But remember, this PhD level assistant that doesn't forget anything if you know what to ask it. So it remembers, we just got to ask it the right question. And so that's a very key point. Do that at the end, ask for the summary, and then you have something that you truly can copy and paste. Like I use a lot of Apple Notes and shared folders with people that are what I would classify as directly on my team out of all the team members. So these shared folders, I just simply copy paste, drop it in Apple Notes. And by the time I hit submit or save or back out and walk in the gym, on top of their text string, it says Chad made an update to your one-on-one folder. Right. So I don't even have to send the text anymore. So how can you remove steps out of leveraging AI? This is a couple little tweaks that I've been able to properly leverage it. I Oh, Mr. Gary's, this is an interesting one. So recently I began to leverage GenSpark.ai. I assume a couple are familiar with that. Jack, you've used it as well?
I haven't, but I know of Gary's foray into it recently.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay. So
I
you're
shared with him.
beginning.
So just a little context before you go into GenSpark AI. First of all, I said, "Hey, is this part of SeedSpark?" And he goes, "No, it's not." I said, "Oh,
No,
okay.
no,
Well,
no,
I wouldn't put it past him, but like, no, it wasn't part of SeedSpark." But he said, and literally, this is Friday late afternoon.
no. Mm,
Here's what I want you to do. Speak to it and do this kind of thing. And I can share with you guys if you want, so you can see what I did. Um, but then, and it was pulling like an old logo and stuff like it had found some older parts of our website because we just did a refresh on the website a week ago or so. And so it was pulling stuff from the old one. Like, now I need it to do this. But Chad, you said something like, well, I know you're going to have some fun with it. And yeah. So
mhm,
then I started with my quirky mind, I thought, wouldn't this be funny? So after it spit out this amazing UI and the user interface, and then also the scope document, I was like, wow, this is really pretty amazing. What would happen if I spoke to it and and I said, hey, I'd like to create a series of kind of funny tattoos where the tattoo artist was, like moody photography, great things on arms, torsos, legs, etc. But where the tattoo artist was a better artist than a speller. And it's like, oh, that would be fun. And so then I started sending in like the natural one that we all remember, no regrets, from it was actually a Milky Way commercial 10 years ago. Um, and so then I started going, and I did probably 40 of these things, and they're hilarious. Now,
mhm,
that's just fun. I mean, it was just fun and quirky, but it made me realize, like, wow, this thing can actually do something which I want to create an app. And
mm,
and if I need to hire someone like SeedSpark, or if we have somebody internally within our group that can do it, okay, fine. But without GenSpark and without Chad Jenkins giving me wisdom on how to do this, I would have been like, I don't know. So walk us through a little bit of, like, let's just pretend I'm Gary Fry at 4 o'clock on Friday, and I don't know anything about GenSpark. I got this
mhm,
problem. Walk us through what you do.
mhm. So a couple things, if you want to jot down, because this will prove very true for the future as you begin to leverage AI. When you think about AI, you want to automate everything but love, because you can't. So these rudimentary processes that we as a society and human race perceive as values created when tasks are completed, that is evaporating. You're moving into the idea economy, and AI ultimately is just going to let you become more authentically human, right? To
Mm,
leverage your imagination. So folks talk about what should I do with it. Ultimately, the far end of the scale is you automate everything but love, right? It's human
mm,
connection. So starting there is a pretty wide opportunity. When another thing, when you think about your prompting, and I have a little short acronym that I use. It's ACDQ. So act like, always. If you have the power, which you do, if anybody that you would think is solid in their position, you love their experience, they got all the credentials, they've got all the years of experience, you have the opportunity to tell your PhD level assistant to act like that person. Oftentimes, I will make a suggestion that it acts like the top three people in a category, have them have a debate around what I'm about to ask you to do for me. And it will literally do that. It'll go and find the three people on the planet with all the pedigree in the world, with all the experience, all the tenure, all the accolades, and they're working on your behalf. But in addition to that, you've asked them to debate on your objective. So this is low hanging fruit that a lot of people don't really consider. So A for act like is the first one. D, think deeply. Tell it to reason with itself. It's a low hanging fruit catalyst for getting much better results. So you don't have to ask 4 or 5 times. You can do it in one. C, context. Give it as much context as you can. Earlier, I mentioned for your Chat GPT, you might consider uploading your profile studies, uploading a book, a manuscript that you created. All of these things give context to you, and it helps it understand why you're asking the question, and even more importantly, why you're asking the question that way. Remember, it's PhD level, so it can interpret a lot of things, but the more you give it, the better outcome you're going to have. And then lastly, I always ask it for questions. If you were me, knowing what you know of me, what questions should I have asked to create a better outcome for what I have asked you of or asked you for? So ACDQ, and yes, I do know I got those out of sequence that C came after D, but it's a little trick there. It's ACDQ. For a long time, I put it in my calendar as a recurring at 5:30 in the morning, which is about the time I arrive at the gym. It's just what's that constant reminder to burn it into the way that I do what I do. And it's just a little hack.
What was the C again?
Context, as much as you can. Context. Yeah. So recently I was working on a new book and I dropped the manuscript for, I don't know, 1 or 2 books back that I had recently launched. And it was so much helpful because it gave it all of that context of the voice that I used in creating that particular book and how it was different in this particular book that I was working on. And I was just asking some good questions, doing some research. It's hugely helpful, but you have to give it context. Let me say that differently. You don't have to, but if you do, your outcome is going to be far superior to if you do not give context. For those that are definitely using GPT, you can go to the settings and I believe go into, well, ultimately you're looking for memory and you'll see the things that it's captured on you from the time in which you've been interacting with it. You can delete them. You can even, and I do this oftentimes, I will reference this applicable to GenSpark and around giving context. One reason that a lot of people who are immersed in AI already don't move from platform to platform, even though the new platforms are accessing all the existing LLMs. But you've already put all this work and time into working with, in my example, Collabra. So to kind of pick that up and move to the next one is a real pain in the butt. That's a lot of context that you want to give it. Well, wouldn't it be easy just to ask the first, in this example, Chat GPT, to create a document for you? And I've done this before. Said, hey, can you create a document that is comprising of everything that you've learned about me, all the context that you've generated on me, and around the objectives that I've asked, and sort of, you know me, put that into a document as if I were going to upload it to you tomorrow and start fresh. And then you take that document and put it into this example, GenSpark, because you don't want to have to recreate all that context. But the reason that you may consider moving to the GenSpark types of platforms is you're beginning to move into agentic AI. So your newest version of Claude, Grok, there's a lot of them out there that now will go and do stuff. A very simple thing that GenSpark would do for you is go make reservations, make a call on my behalf, and log into Yelp and make my reservations and send me an invite. Now, this is some things that I'm paying actual people to do today. So in some instances, a lot of money every day to do all these reservations, all these places that I travel. And you're getting to the place where that's just one more thing that you don't have to have the total power of a human who can think on its feet and understands context, has been with me 5 or 7 years. I don't have to ask them to do a rudimentary task like make reservations in Toronto this weekend. So when you think about GenSpark and the ability that you're beginning to uncover with having agentic AI, it produces the results like Mr. Gary is, of course, showing the emotion of that he's recently experienced. And I mentioned at the very beginning that I envision, because of the world now, which is I live in as just entrepreneurs, we all have a who deficiency. You have great ideas. You're receiving them from your imagination and you see the world from your perspective. These ideas empower you to create value, which I would argue is the reason that we're on the planet in the first place. Using your uniqueness and creating that value, there's always been an impediment. We need another team member. We got to expand to another location. I don't have the right person. I don't have the experience to make this decision. Well, now you have this in the power of your hand. So you're able to engage with, in this example, SEEDSPARK. And one thing I would always suggest that you do, which is this is applicable in life too, start with the end. That's where you begin. So when you began to have this conversation, Gary, with SEEDSPARK last Friday, I had made a suggestion, just talk to it like you're talking to me. We used to have this app. It was provided by, is gone. Source code is gone. It provided us this. Here's how I want to use it today, features and benefits. Here's how I envision being able to use it in the future. Because what it's creating, it'll answer the question that you ask. We all know that. We played with AI. But are we asking the right question? So current, even past, current, and also future. Because it's just going to dictate the results that you get out of it. And then think about all the things. So great, you wanted to build the app. That's wonderful. We're going to need an instruction page, probably need an FAQ, might need a logo, because if we want to take it corporate wide, I want it to stand on its own. Heck, it's going to probably increase or create enterprise value. So let's give it an identity, right? So that now I got to create a logo. And therefore, as you just think more widely and starting from the end of what all you would need to create this impact or outcome or this value, start with all that information and then drop it in there and hit enter. It is awesome to see it kick off what perceptibly looks like 6 to 8 little humans going to do stuff. Check trademarks for me on things that I create, or check domain names, registrations. If that's not available because they want $28,000 for it, someone sitting on it, what are the top 3 others that would be very viable as domain names for the objective that I want to create? And it'll just do all that at the same time. So it saves me months upon months to create something at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's sitting on the website ready for all these entrepreneurs to take advantage of by 9 a.m. Never been able to do that before.
Yeah, that's actually a really great example, because I remember in 2000 when we were looking to launch bizjournals.com, we bought gazillions of domain names. And and we were looking into, and then we had to do trademark searches. Just because you have a domain name doesn't mean jack squat, because I think that's a really good one. Now, we had a question coming in here from Will, and if you could, he said, are you talking more about using Chat GPT or Perplexity or both? Like, delineate those two, like how you use those two again, just to make sure that it's real crystal clear.
Yeah, no problem. I have a question. Like, by reference to saying put it where your Safari is on your mobile device, assuming you have an iPhone, obviously Android's applicable, move it to where your browser is just to make sure that your muscle memory, leveraging your thumb to press that when you have a question, like you would go and use Google, use Perplexity. I just have a question. It does keep your history, like you'll sign in, but you don't have to pay for it. I would suggest that you do that today, but you can. You'll also find Perplexity seems to have a little bit of personality. For some reason, it's easy to talk to for just a question. If I'm doing deep research or I'm doing deep development, and when I say development, I do not mean code whatsoever. I mean more concept or an objective, and I'm going to have multiple rounds with this engagement. So I'm going to think about it, ask some questions, going to create, and then a couple of days from now, I want to go back to it and dig some more and create some more. And then I may summarize that and give it to my team to go make it real. I want to use ChatGPT for that. I'm also going to build a profile in GPT. When we talked earlier about uploading my profile studies, uploading books that I've written, or maybe you put out blog articles or things of that nature, though I guess I know if it's on the web, you can ask it to go get it. I'm going to build a profile around myself so that it gives me more credible answers, and it understands likely why I want to research certain topics that I do. I'm going to use ChatGPT for that. When I'm going to create, let's say I create tools that entrepreneurs use to help them expand their vision, and then ways to leverage the art of collaboration. So these are fillable PDFs, or they're about to be launched into an application where everything and every time you go and fill out a tool, it databases that information. So therefore, I'm creating web components. I'm also maybe building a logo, as I mentioned earlier, FAQ, an instruction guide. I would use GenSpark for that because I kind of want to do it all at the same time. I mentioned doing domain name searches, which you can absolutely do with GPT. I just find it more comprehensively better for me when I use GenSpark because it's built-in agentic AI. So it will go and do those things all at the same time. I don't need to make multiple requests and build it at the same time, including the code. I can see how it's thinking, which is awesome. And when I get done, I could copy and paste that code. A lot of times I just send a link to that entire chat session to one of my team members because they're more technology than I am.
Yeah,
So that's the
this
reason
is
I'd
really
use the
good.
different ones.
So Chad, if you guys are okay with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from my screen what I put in, what it kicked out, so that it's not just a concept. Is that all right with y'all?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, cool. All right. So I'm going to this was my maiden voyage. Oh, actually, no, this one isn't. This was my funny tattoo thing that I just had a creative thing with. But let's see. Hold on. Taking you back. This is the original one. So I need to scroll up and get this bar out of the way. Okay, here we go. So I took Chad literally on, okay, I'm introducing myself. I'm Gary Fry with BGW, blah, blah, blah. And our website is this. And Sandler Sales Training had this thing called CARE. And this is what the K meant. This is what the A, R, E, etc. So I put all of that in there. That it was probably too much. But then it says, okay, I'll help you create a scope document and sample pages. And so, and then I uploaded an Excel file that had ascribed point values to each of these activities. What we want to do is measure the inputs of what are salespeople doing. Did you meet with somebody? Did you have a call? Did you go over a proposal? These kind of things, these activities, and we ascribed point values to them. And so we had probably 30, 40 lines, maybe a little more on just a simple Excel page. And so I uploaded that. So it was part of the reference material that I gave to this GenSpark. And so then it was pulling up old logos and it's like, and it pulled up some new stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I actually want the new logo. So then it didn't do this really well because I uploaded a PNG file, but it's actually not that. So then I'm like, no, that's not what I want. This is the one I want. And so then check this out. This is what, can you guys see that?
Yes.
You can make it full
All
screen
right.
too if you'd like.
Let's see. How do I do that? Hold on.
You can edit in AI slides, the blue button, big one, top right.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank
There
you.
you go. No problem. Well, closer. It's
A
all
little
good.
bit better.
We can see it.
All right. Let's see if I can expand. No, it's not. But anyway, so it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Then it shows what are the keep activities, what are the attain activities, and then it's showing these bar charts, all that kind of stuff, and then it's showing like real-time progress. Oh, that's pretty cool. Then I'm like, all right, let's see. I want to go back to here. And then it created a scope document. Let me go back.
Which will be on the left side.
Yeah,
Your
and I'm
entire
trying to.
context is on the left.
Here we
You can
go.
do that
I'm
too.
back here. Back here. So I gotta keep moving my other. So then it created this scope document. Check this out.
hmm
Okay,
Yeah, who could do that
check
in three
this out.
minutes? You know.
I mean, and in all fairness, it took probably 10 minutes or so while it's just chunking. It's just
Mm.
processing. But this is what it spits out. So now I can go, okay, well, if I wanted, let's say that Sandler goes, hey, we can't find the app, but you can't use care. Then I'm going to go back and say, all right, same concept, just different acronym. What are we going to do?
Create an acronym around what you know about BGW, our core values, what we're trying to accomplish, and who we are as an organization. And it'll give you three different ones, and give me three different ones that mean
Yeah.
something. Oh,
So
and then once
that
you're done with that, pick one and tell it to create a logo.
incredible. So let me get rid of all these little nav bars with Zoom and everything is not working for me. Okay. One other thing that I'm going to show you. So I mean, that blew my mind. Just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, I had no idea this was available because again, I was using Chat GPT as a glorified Google assistant. So then I'm like, all right, I want to create these series of funny, funny tattoos, and this is what I want to do. And it says, oh yeah, and I want dramatic lighting. I'm like, nah, it's too dark. Then it comes up with no regrets. Then oh, this is fun. How about carpe diem? Oh, let's make it crepe diem. Then I'm like, oh, this is going to be really funny. So then I'm like, fearless, and like progress, not perfection. So I'm like, this is just too funny. So I mean, I had way too much fun doing it. I'm going to stop sharing.
And then you chose one for this week in the logo.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly, and I wanted it to look like AI actually misspelled it, but I misspelled it on purpose. AI didn't do it. Now, AI will come at times, like I said, I want you to spell it this way, and then it actually added another letter. I'm like, no, no, no. It only has one B, not two B's. And it's like, oh, sorry. And then it redoes it. I mean, and then it was kind of funny because it's like, oh, that's a great idea because that's a perfect, it's just so patronizing at times. So
Mhm.
anyway, but I thought, yeah, that part was silly, but it was creating something. My imagination and quirky humor, because we all see stuff on LinkedIn, that's all the same rehashed pablum sayings, and like we're like, oh, please. And I thought, well, let's just do something funny with it. And so
Mhm.
that's not necessarily a business application, but this app thing, I'm serious about it. Like we're gonna do something with this. And
Mhm.
otherwise I could have called Chad and Chad could have said, Gary, yeah, I'll send you to the right person on my team and we'll get going on a scope document. And he could have like, and by the way, it's going to cost
Mhm.
this much up front and blah, blah, blah. But he didn't. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that. So thank you. Jack, you got a
Mhm.
question?
I do. All right. So, um, Chad, despite the background, I'm a sci-fi nerd, as is Adam. But so, what is the cost? So, what is the cost to us as far as our privacy, being hacked? And for example, let's say that um, I'm the CEO of a company and I'm doing all this stuff in there, and I'm
Mhm.
creating this, and then some outsider breaks in, and then they start publishing emails to get information, but using my voice that has been generated, my personality and my,
Mm,
that kind of thing. So using it for bad behavior. So, I
Mhm.
mean, it's just what, and I think that I hear a lot about it's like, okay, oh my gosh, we're giving it too much. We're turning over too much of what we need to do. And then, the defense of that is, yeah, but that stuff's already out there. And, your voice has been recorded. Your credit card information is out there. Your social security number is out there. So people who want to get to it are going to get to it anyway. So why not relent and use it for good is the
Mhm.
kind of the counter argument. So what would you say to the naysayers who say it's just, we're giving it too much too soon and it's growing too fast?
Mhm. So the cost, it could be your business if you're not. You have a
Okay.
responsibility to leverage AI because I promise you your competitor is. First thought. Second thought, you're right in what you're saying. So I appreciate you saying that. It's all already out there. It happened in the early 2000s, and it's been happening every day, everywhere you go, every time you pick up the phone, everything is tracked. So if you're not in the game, your competitor's going to eat you lunch. Somebody coming along is going to just operate 10 times faster than you have or you're able to do because you're not leveraging the tools today. If I were building a house, and this is before hammers came along, what would I have done to have a hammer? And the first person that started swinging one, how much faster they build that house. So that is not a direct comparison to the game that's now being played because it's so exponential more than that. I would strongly encourage you to do, and I've said it a couple times, put it in your fabric, figure out how to put it in your path of progress and just begin to leverage it. And I appreciate the question as well. So the privatization of AI, many organizations I deal with now around the world there's quite a few very reputable ones that are creating your private AI. So I mentioned earlier today that it's a real pain whenever you have invested as much time and effort into GPT. We'll just use the one that we're most familiar with, I would expect. And it knows all of this about you and the way you do what you do and your profile studies I've referenced a couple of times. To take that and move it over to another AI, it's not going to be one to one. I give you a little hack for it. It's the same way that I use the platform to create the prompt that I need to ask the platform to get what I need. Just ask it to create a document from what it knows on you so you can take it to the other AI. But more and more, I see that organizations are creating their own AI. And then as these platforms are coming out with new capabilities, more robust capabilities, you're able to just create the API into that particular new platform. And you're able to keep your brain, your secret sauce here locally in a privatized manner that you'll have for as long as you continue to support it. So for the kind of upper echelon, that's what more and more of us are doing to that extent and applicable to everybody I see here on the call. You then can begin to explore selling your own subscription to your secret sauce, right? We all have clients, I would expect, like everyone here represented. What would they benefit from if they had your brain on demand? So a lot of small to medium-sized business owners, of course, they start out and they begin to grow and get some revenue, and all of a sudden it has a different name on the door, but really the business is the person. So leveraging your own private AI, one, helps with your security of it, your secret sauce, but then it can also create enterprise value for you and even cash flow along the way if you decide to offer that out and create a competitive advantage for you because you're kind of a first to move to those that you serve today. So there's a couple different thoughts around that.
Hey,
Feel free to ask any
Chad,
questions.
another question came in from Will. Can you make a business profile that shares only a portion of yourself, but maybe not the personal side or secret parts that make you you?
Yeah, of course you could, because you dictate what goes in there. Just know that AI is extremely smart and it has access to the entire internet. So there's a lot of personal stuff. I assume most folks here probably engaged with Facebook. You'd be surprised what you've already given away. So absolutely you can control what you place and put into the LLMs that you use, but don't be surprised if some of that personal stuff pops up, but know it's not listening to you. You've likely already given that away probably in the early 2000s. You just forgot. Might have done it to MySpace or something like that way back in the day. Or all these
So,
breaches, right? It's probably going to be more than that. More than what you've given away is all these breaches. And it's not even sexy anymore to announce the amount of them that happen. But there's many a day, like big ones. big ones that are affecting everybody on this call, but you don't hear about them like you did, that's even 5 years ago. So there's so much of your data out there. And just to touch on the data piece one more time, if we took anyone represented on the call's data, all of it, all that you've ever created, ever, forever, and we dropped it into a LLM, it is a billionth of the size of one raindrop in the largest hurricane that ever happened on the face of this planet. And tomorrow there's a new hurricane, and the next day there's two hurricanes, just from the amount of data that's created. So yeah, it's of course it's a thing because it's a thing, but there's so much more out there from a security standpoint. You can take precautions, but it's likely just out there in the public domain already.
I have a dumb question. What is powering all of this? So, it's kind of like you think about the generation or how the evolution of a computer, that now we have, the power of most powerful computer in our hand. You can't see it, my phone. So
Yes.
what's the juice behind this? I mean, is it some supercomputer that's in the secret place out in the desert in Arizona somewhere? So how does this work? Just fundamentally, because we're running out of time, but
Oh goodness. So
yeah.
data centers all across the world in very obscure locations, albeit they have to have access to water for cooling and an abundance of power. So recently you've heard more and more. I have a good friend in Gillette, Wyoming, he builds small nuclear reactors that are used today on submarines. Right? Submarine can last for 100 years and never really have to come back. So, but nuclear power is bad juju. But you're seeing that paradigm really shift now, because with the evolution of AI, the whole world doesn't make enough power for the capability that we now have at our fingertips as the world begins to use what has now been created. So today it's just sucking tons and tons of power. All these NVIDIA chips that you read about almost on a daily basis, of where Bezos or Musk are buying so many NVIDIA chips to create a new server farm, and it's going to help with Grok 5.0. It's a true statement, but we're running out of power pretty aggressively, and you should expect, if you like to invest, you should expect some forward advancement in nuclear technology because of the power drain. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to be sure, because I didn't know what an LLM was, other than, so Richard Blum, if you're watching this, this is not about your advanced degree. This is about, what was it?
Large language model.
Large language model.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence that can understand and generate human language. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, indeed. I like Joseph. I can see the little question here. He's talking about water consumption. It's very interesting. I had a new entrepreneur introduced to me last week. This gentleman's from the Air Force in Iraq. He created, because of course in Iraq you have to pump in the water. They were getting it in water bottles. Think of the water bottles that you'd have to send to an Air Force base in Iraq in the desert. So the two of them went and created the ability to create water from air. You could buy one for your house for 26 grand, and you literally could create 100 gallons a day of water. Yeah. So these technologies, albeit are not AI, but they're technologies that are very far and very fast advancing, so that we can support the requirements of AI.
yeah, we had one of those things in our basement, and it created a lot of water because it was a humidifier, and I had to go empty it a lot.
Oh goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a lot less than $26,000. I'm not sure I would have wanted to drink out of it, but
yeah. So I would say for most of us that buy whole house for water filtration are 6 to 10 grand. For 26, you can make it, and you don't have to filter it because it's literally coming out of the air. And tomorrow
amazing.
it does it again. Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Final question for you before we shut this baby down. Will says, and Will, you've been asking some great questions. Thank you. Is ChatGPT by far your favorite, or are others close behind or might have other advantages? Is it better to pick one and stick with it, or keep up and always be looking for the next best one?
I think it's a great question. To answer the first part of the question, my favorite is the one that creates the most value for me. So I'm looking for the very next one. I would argue that it is good to pick one to begin building that profile that I talked about a couple times here. Build your profile and just get immersed with the capabilities and the way you will be using AI, at least where you are today, and start there. So I would not suggest try everything on the planet, because while we've been talking, there's probably been 5 or 10 new ones that have launched and 5 or 10 that launched the next version of themselves. So I wouldn't get caught up in the noise. ChatGPT is a perfect one to pick because it continues to create and expand its capabilities itself, and it is sort of tried and true. But then once you have a comfortability with using it, do begin to expand. There's definitely not each one, but a lion's share of these are very purpose built to solve for a specific reason. So you'll definitely want to do some exploring, but start where you are, and ChatGPT would be a great place to start. But whatever you do, try it every day, just because if you think about it, our children who have a lot more time on their hands than we do are playing with this stuff continuously, and we don't want to be left behind. So leverage them as well, because they will drop you some tidbits and nuggets along the way as well.
I have a quick technical question before we go, which is, you said you don't have to pay for the membership versions of these, but should you still have an account? Because there's like the use on the spot, but I would imagine that you'd need to create an account that you're
Yeah, I would
using in order to
suggest
be
a
able
create
to
account.
aggregate, right? Okay.
Yeah, well, it's aggregate first for GPT. I'm definitely, it's $20 a month or 25 if you want to give it to your entire team, where their GPT knows my GPT. So in all the teams that I'm on, I'd pay for the team version. Some of them I pay for the $200 a month because we use them a lot. But I would strongly suggest, yes, create an account. The reference to you don't have to pay for it was applicable to Perplexity, where I said,
Okay.
hey, it's just my answer engine.
Okay.
I do still create an account, even though I choose not to pay for it. It's $20 a month, or maybe even less if you want to, because it keeps my history. And that is
Yep.
very important to me. And I want to keep the history of what I ask, because I don't want to have to ask it again. On GPT, pay for a subscription and build your profile. On something like SEEDSPARK, it depends on how creative you are. If you're literally going to be creating slide decks, websites, logos, applications, then sure, I'd cough over the $240 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great
And that's
question,
what
though.
we did. It'll be well worth it for $200 or whatever it was.
Good Lord. Yes. Yes.
So guys, we're a little bit over. Thank you. We'll probably have to do a 2.0 on this one because lots of engagement. The cool part about this, Chad, which is exactly where I wanted to go, is you gave some practical advice versus just talking about, oh, it's going to be able to do this or it can do that. Like, people want to know, like, how do I do it? Because most people are in the very early stages of like, I really don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know really where to go, like Gary Fry was when I called you at 4 o'clock on Friday. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you everybody for being on here. Donnie, seeing you here too. If anybody came on late or you want to replay it, go to BGW YouTube channel. So BGW YouTube channel or Shoemaker's YouTube channel. Also connect with Chad Jenkins on LinkedIn, and you can also find him at SEEDSPARK. But LinkedIn, he's doing a lot of cool content there too. So Chad, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Adam, thank you for kicking this thing off on the front end, and Jack for your very creative background. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. Thanks, guys.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a pleasure,
All right, see you
guys.
guys.
Thanks so much.
All right,
See you.
bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Yeah.